Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We'll start our Quran study today, inshallah, from verse 15 of chapter 10, Jonah. Seek refuge to God from Satan the rejected, and in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Every letter calculated and divinely designed. When our revelations are recited to them, those who do not expect to meet us say, "Bring a Quran other than this, or change it." Say, "I cannot possibly change it on my own. I simply follow what is revealed to me. I fear, if I disobey my Lord, the retribution of an awesome day." Say, "Had God willed, I wouldn't have recited it to you, nor would you have known anything about it. I have lived amongst you a whole life before this, and you have known me as a sane, truthful person. Do you not understand?" So what we're reading here is that prophet or messenger is reading the Quran to a group of people, and these people do not like what they're hearing um, in the Quran, from the Quran, and they're demanding the prophet or the messenger to bring a different Quran to them. So it could be like Prophet Muhammad, or it could be even Rashad. They're demanding a different Quran, or demanding a different explanation or a different translation of the Quran. The point is that what they do not like is the word of God. If they do not like the word of God, then it's their problem. So they need to really look inside themselves and see what is it that they don't like. Of course, the prophet and messengers, they always obey God, and they wouldn't say anything other than what God has told them to do. Because what they say is that I'm afraid, I fear the retribution of an awesome day. So who is there that can help them if they disobey God? Um, and in verse 16, we read that, say, "Had God willed, I wouldn't have recited it to you, nor would you have known anything about it." This is a profound verse. Why? Because it tells us that God chooses who to receive or who to hear his message, and based and that is purely based on God's knowledge of our innermost thought, God's knowledge of who we are, who we were before coming to this world, and what our situations are. So based on God's knowledge, he wills for us to hear the message, to receive the message. Um, and 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 it's really up to us to take heed and follow these verses. I'm reading 35, 32, inshallah, and that inshallah clarifies things a little bit. 35, 32 says, "We passed description from generation to generation, and we allowed whomever we choose from amongst our servants to receive it." So God is allowing whoever he chooses from his servants to receive it. Subsequently, some of them wronged their souls. So they received the message. Some of them wronged their souls by disbelieving in the verses of the Quran, by disbelieving in the scriptures of God. Others upheld it only part of the time. So that some people follow the Quran and follow the commandments of Quran partially or part of the time, and they don't fully uphold the book, while others were eager to work righteousness in accordance with God's will. So that's the third category, that believe fully in God and believe fully in the Quran and God alone and Quran alone. And God says this is the greatest triumph. And these are the believers. Um, it is very interesting because I was having a conversation today with someone, and today actually, and that person have received the message, believed in the message. But whenever this person talks about her deceased father or her deceased friend, she says, "May God rest their soul." And I did remind her a couple of times that you cannot really say that. I mean, you don't know whether whether they were believers or not. But what her argument was that they didn't receive the message. So the message that you received today, they didn't receive the message. But now God is telling us, look, it's God who chooses to receive the message. And we really have to be taking care of our own soul in the first place. And if we receive the message by God's will, we have to be on the category where we uphold it all the time and we believe in it. And really, the knowledge of the people that haven't received this message never before us is really with God. It's exactly the question that Pharaoh asked. Pharaoh asked, so what about the people before us, that when then Moses had come to them? And Moses said, well, the knowledge of it is with God. God never errors or is not unjust, so it's not for us to decide. It's for God to decide what to do with his creatures. And so really, for our own sake, we have to uphold this Quran and follow what God has told us. We have Noah, when the flood came, his son was not in the ship with, like, in the boat with them, and he said to God, God, this is my son. And God told him, do not ask me for something that you're not aware of. What does that mean? That mean God wills whatever he wills. So if you're not aware of of for example, what kind of person your son is, or your father was, or anything like that, I mean, you cannot ask God for things that you shouldn't be asking. And I'm saying that because I know that the father of that person hadn't received the message, and I know that he was setting up idols beside God as intercessors. So when you know that situation, really, it's for your own good, not to ask God for things that you do not know. So you leave it to God, right? And that's for your own good. I mean, like, if anybody else has got different opinion, please do let me know. But that was my argument today, and it really made me upset because I really didn't want to say that, and it's very difficult for someone to hear something like that about a person that you really love. But fortunately or unfortunately, this is the system. So it's really for your own good, for your own sake, to not to ask God for things that you're not aware of. And God is the one who chooses who to receive his message or not to receive his message. God is omniscient. He knows everything. He knows our innermost thoughts. He knows what we say and what we do not say. He knows things that we are not aware of it ourselves either. Um, so yeah, it's better to be cautious and it's better to be reverent. Inshallah, I know it's very difficult, but yeah. 17. Who is more evil than the one who fabricates lies about God or rejects his revelations? Certainly the transgressors never succeed. So this is about those people that create lies about God. What are the lies about God? Lies about the religion, hadith, sunnah, all of those things that they've created. They attributed it to the prophet of God. And the prophet of God, of course, is the person that follows God. If they say that the prophet of God will say things like that or do things like that, they're attributing these lies to God, right? So these are the evil people. These are the people who reject God's revelations. When you remind them with the Quran, you remind them with this book, they reject it. And they do not want to follow it. They do not want to hear it. Or when they hear it, they want to explain it or describe it differently from what Messenger of God has done it. So these are the evil people. The transgressors never succeed. They may have worldly success or what we think is success, but in the hereafter, they would not have any success. I mean, God is the one who is in full control here and in the hereafter. And in the hereafter, He's the only Lord and Master, right? So if we haven't followed what he's told us to do in this world, we will not have any place in the hereafter. He would be like the hell. They worship beside God idols that possess no power to harm them or benefit them. And they say, these are our intercessors at God. Say, are you informing God of something he doesn't know in the heavens or the earth? Be he glorified. He is the Most High, far above needing partners. Subhanallah. So this verse is confirming the fact that people that set up idols beside God as intercessors, i.e., those people that can help them in the hereafter against the will of God, these people are idol worship. God says, are you informing God of something he does not know? So why God is asking this question? These people are setting up idols beside God as intercessors. Has God told them to do that? Absolutely not. God says all the intercession belongs to God. All the power or the decision belongs to God. God never tells them that there are intercessors that can help them make sure you pray to them or make sure you obey them or anything like that. Everywhere God is in full control. Every verse that we read about the hereafter, God is in full control. Nobody else has got any power besides God in this world or in the hereafter. And what are these intercessors going to do? Are going to tell God something that he's not aware of it? What are they going to do? Are they going to tell God, God, I know this guy, he was praying to me every night. Well, if he didn't pray to you, then that's fine because he prayed to me. So I would demand you to astaghfirullah, to send him to heaven instead of hell. Of course not. Absolutely not. God is fully aware of everyone and everything. If God wills to forgive someone, nobody can stop it. And if God wills to, um, not to forgive someone, nobody can intercede. Nobody can do anything. There is no power other than God's. Verse 19. The people used to be one congregation. Then they disputed. If it were not for a predetermined word from your Lord, they would have been judged immediately regarding their disputes. Obviously, we know in the high society we were all one congregation, and we disputed. We disputed God's absolute authority. And if it were not for the fact that God wanted to give us some more time and opportunity to repent and reform, we would have all been sent to hell. We would have all been judged immediately regarding our disputes. So it's God's mercy that we are in this world, and inshallah, we would use this opportunity to learn. As Messenger said, this is like a university for us to learn more about God and to be able to redeem ourselves back into His kingdom. Inshallah. Miracle of the Quran to be unveiled after Muhammad. They say, how come no miracle came down to him from his Lord? Say, the future belongs to God. So wait, and I am waiting along with you. So I guess I've got, this is 4, 5, I go to page 18 or 19. Okay, it's page 18 in the introduction of the Quran. The Messenger has explained it very clearly regarding the verse that the miracle of the Quran is to be unveiled after Muhammad. God's messenger delivered the good news of our God-given chance to redeem ourselves, and they were supported by formidable signs. When Moses went to Pharaoh, he was supported by such miracles as turning of his staff into a serpent. Jesus created live birds from clay by God's leave, healed the leprous and the blind by God's leave, and revived the dead by God's leave. The Prophet Muhammad, God's messenger who delivered this final testament, did not exhibit such miracles, as we just read in 1020. The Quran itself was the miracle supporting Muhammad's mission, 29:50 and 51. It was divine wisdom that separated the miracle of the Quran from Muhammad by 14 centuries. Now that we understand the momentous dimensions of the Quran's mathematical miracle, as we see in Appendix 1, the miracle of 19, we realize that millions of people would have worshipped Muhammad as God incarnate if this miracle was revealed through him. So it was God's um, mercy and knowledge that separated the miracle from the actual words of the Quran that was revealed to the Prophet. I find it 14 centuries ago, before the actual revelation of the miracle. Where was I? 20. So we've got a footnote here as well, 1020. In retrospect, we see now that Quran's miracle, indeed one of the greatest miracles, was divinely predestined to be unveiled 14 centuries after Muhammad. In view of the current condition of the traditional Muslims, if Muhammad had been given this miracle, those Muslims who are already idolizing Muhammad beside God would have worshipped him as God incarnate. Additionally, this miracle is obviously designed for the computer age and to be appreciated by mathematically sophisticated generations. Yeah, subhanAllah, and in the generations to come, more and more technological advances would, inshallah, help people access this book and appreciate the miracle more and more. Inshallah, I mean, we know that there would be a day that people will all join to the religion of God, inshallah, and that day is not too far, inshallah. There was another footnote 1015 I didn't read. The word Quran is mentioned in the Quran 58 times, but since this verse refers to another Quran, it must be excluded. This Quran is mentioned in the Quran 57 times, 19 times 3, subhanAllah. So the verse was where people, the disbelievers, were asking the Prophet or the Messenger, bring a Quran other than this or change it. This refers to different Quran. It's not about the actual Quran word of God. They're demanding a different Quran. That's why, for the purpose of the miracle, this has been removed from the total of the 58 to make 57. That refers to the actual Quran. Subhanallah. That's that. Rebellious humans. Verse 21. When we bestow mercy upon the people, after adversity have afflicted them, they immediately scheme against our revelations. Say God's scheming is far more effective, for our messengers are recording everything you scheme. I'm just going to continue on. These verses are very connected. He is the one who moves you across the land and sea. You get onto the ships, and they sail smoothly in nice breeze. Then, while rejoicing therein, violent wind blows, and the waves surround them from every side. This is when they implore God, sincerely devoting their prayers to Him alone. If you only save us this time, we will be eternally appreciative. That's what people say. But as soon as He saves them, they transgress on earth and oppose the truth. O people, your transgression is only to the detriment of your own soul. You remain preoccupied with this worldly life, then to us is your ultimate return. Then we inform you of everything you had done. The analogy of this worldly life, is like this. We sent down water from the sky to produce with it all kinds of plants from the earth, and to provide food for the people and the animals. Then, just as the earth is perfectly adorned, and its people think that they are in control thereof, our judgment comes by night or by day, leaving it completely barren, as if nothing existed the previous day. We thus explain the revelations for people who reflect. God invites to the abode of peace and guides whomever He wills in a straight path. So, subhanAllah, the examples that God says and gives us in these verses is relevant to our day-to-day life, right? The example that God says, um, God helps us sail smoothly on ships, on the sea, a nice breeze, and then a violent wind blows, and the waves coming, and then we run to God, imploring Him. And then when God saves us, we just forget about it. As soon as God saves us on earth, we oppose the truth. So this is very common between everyone. When something happens in our life that we don't like, or God forbid, some sort of illness or some sort of accident, I don't know, something happens that we don't expect it. Life was good, and then this hits. What do we do? What does the human being do? We just implore God, right? Even the people that don't believe in God, we see in the movies and everything, they just go and pray. We pray to God sincerely, devoting our prayers to God. And then once God saves us, we forget. We don't implore God the way we should be imploring Him. We don't continue it. That's just, okay, that phase is past. Let's continue on. And then people start opposing God's revelations. People don't follow the commandments. The faith will become a faith again. Forget about God. Forget about the fact that at that time they were just like looking for God and to implore Him and ask Him to save them. This has happened in everyone's life. And then God says this is exactly the same as our life. This is like the analogy of our life. Um, the earth is fine. God sends the water. Everything is perfect. And then all of a sudden, the judgment comes, and it's as if nothing was there yesterday. People that were not ready for the day of judgment, they would have nothing with them. Doesn't matter what sort of worldly life they had, what sort of, I don't know, car, what sort of house, what sort of spouse, how many children, what sort of job they had. It doesn't matter. It's as if nothing existed the day before. If we go back to God with nothing, that would be our situation. Whereas those that prepare themselves for the day of judgment, those that continuously follow God's commandment in any situation, good or bad, and they steadfastly persevere in worshiping Him alone, of course, on the day of judgment, they would have nothing to fear. They wouldn't worry about anything. That's God's promise to them, right? So this is very meaningful. These few verses that God has explained here and Messenger has titled Rebellious Humans. It does resonate to a lot of us. So God is telling us, so that imploring God um, should be a continuous responsibility. Well, that's responsibility. It should be a continuous act for us human beings, because there would be a day that day will come. Everything, would be completely, so the earth would be completely barren. Everything would get destroyed. We read about the day of judgment and that awesome day in the final chapters of the Quran. God has explained them very vividly, what will happen. That the stars will crash, the sun and the moon will crash, the earth will explode, the mountains would flatten. Well, that would be an awesome day. That would be a scary day for many of us, God forbid. So we need to prepare for that day. God invites to abode of peace God knows what is waiting for us. We are the ones that are actually, we're just like really drowned in this worldly life. And God keeps reminding us in His book, sending messengers, that what is waiting for us is awesome. He is inviting us to the abode of peace and guides us. And He guides whomever He wills in a straight path. God says He only guides those who want to be guided. So if you are one of those that want to be guided, inshallah, God will guide us and He will support us. So if I read the footnote here, 1024, God of course knows whether His judgment will come during the day or during the night. It just happens that the earth will be half day and half night when the end of the world comes. Another scientific miracle of the Quran, and that refers to verse 24, when God says, then just as the earth is perfectly adorned and its people think that they're in control of it, the judgment comes by night or the day. So obviously, the earth is round. Part of it will be day, part of it would be night, right? So God is in full control, and He knows everything, of course, at that time when He explained things like that, 1400 years ago. 26. Heaven and hell are eternal. For the righteous, the reward will be multiplied manifold. So this is for the people that have actually prepared for the hereafter. For the righteous, the reward will be multiplied manifold. Their faces will never experience any deprivation or shame. These are the dwellers of paradise. They abide therein forever. God says their faces never experience any deprivation or shame. That's amazing. On that awesome day, when the heavens and hell are presented to people, those who are righteous, they would be happy. They would not have any shame, and they would not be one of those that blame themselves and blame each other. That would be a terrible scene to witness. When the righteous will be dwellers of paradise, they abide therein forever. So it's going to be forever. They will not be kicked out, inshallah. So inshallah, there will not be any more rebellion, and that's because, inshallah, the righteous people will be those who have learned their lesson in this world. They will not repeat what they did before coming to this world. So inshallah, we will go there fully educated and fully ready, inshallah. As for those who earned sins, these are the people that didn't follow what God said and they went there empty-handed. The requital is equivalent to their sins. One more thing again, of course, God says the reward for the righteous is multiplied manifold. So we read in the Quran, when we give charity, God gives it back to us multiplied manifold. When we do something good, when we give God the loan of righteousness, God will pay it back to us multiplied manifold. And then God says, if you earn sins, for those who earn sins, their requital is equivalent to their sins. So it's not going to be multiplied manifold. That's God's mercy. So they will only be requited for their sin. Humiliated is their lot. Humiliation is their lot. And no one beside God can protect them. And this is when people say there would be people who will intercede on our behalf with God, they need to read this verse. No one beside God can protect them. No one. Not their prophet, not their messengers, not their saints. No one can help them. Their faces were seen overwhelmed by masses of dark night. Yes, we know that hell will be dark, right? Because it's far from the light. It's the furthest from God. It will be very dark. And of course, like God says, fire. There would be fire as well. So probably the fire would not have any light either. Subhanallah. They will be the dwellers of hell. They abide therein forever. There is no way out. And they call Malik the angel that protects, well, not that, protects the hell. When I say protect the hell, it's not a right word. I don't exactly remember what the word is. So the guardian, the God that guards the hell, they will tell him, can you ask God to reduce the retribution for us, even for one day? He said, well, did you not receive the messengers? They'll say, yes, we did receive the messenger. And then the answer is going to be, so no, you're going to be here and you're going to stay here forever. And then you're going to suffer forever, right? God. So that's terrible. Idols disown their worshippers. On the day when we summon them all, we will say to those who worshipped idols, we have summoned you together with your idols. We will have them confront each other, and their idols will say to them, we had no idea that you idolized us. God suffices as witness between us and you, that we were completely unaware of your worshipping us. So this is the greatest shock, probably, that people will receive. Imagine all these Muslims and all these Christians that idolize Muhammad, or probably like Shiites have got like probably millions of saints, or like the Christians that have got like probably a few 100,000 saints and all that. um, I'm just joking. It's not a few 100,000 or a million. Probably Shiites are a few 100,000, but not the Christians. And then Jesus that they worship, and they say like through Jesus you'll reach salvation and all that. That they say when they see Jesus, or when they see Prophet Muhammad. Well, I say Prophet Jesus. Well, Prophet Muhammad, I should say Prophet Jesus. So to then say Jesus and Muhammad, they would just be like two normal people, and they would say like, well, we had no idea that you were idolizing us, you were worshiping us, that you were asking us to intercede on your behalf. God suffices as a witness between you and us. We're completely unaware. And that's the greatest shock of their life. These people are dedicated, and I mean dedicated. They're ready to do anything. They're ready to say anything, go anywhere, like do anything and anything really for these idols that they've set up against their wills. And when they see them on the day of judgment and they reject them, that's a great loss, and that's a great shock. They've literally lost the opportunity that God had given them in this world to purify themselves of any idol worship, and they've gone completely the wrong way, and there's no way back, and the hell is eternal. Yeah. Inshallah, God will help us and protect us from any idol worship. Um, God is telling us all over the book that there is no God besides the one God, and no one has got any power of intercession or any other power beside him. God is running everything, and these are the attributes of God that the believers need to believe in. And that's what Messenger of God says. You may believe in God, but if you do not know God, who really God is, and if you don't know his attributes, then you're not really a believer, right? So there's the big, big, big opportunity that you go far astray. Right. Where am I? Verse 30. That is when each soul will examine everything it had done. They will be returned to God, their rightful Lord and Master, and the idols they had fabricated will disown them. Say, who provides for you from the heaven and the earth? Who controls all the hearing and the eyesight? Who produces the living from the dead, and the dead from the living? Who is in full control of all things? They would say, God. Say, why then do you not observe the commandments? So this verse is telling us that those who actually believe in God, they're not really believers. And that's what Messenger said. It said like, The majority of the people are disbelievers, and there's a minority that believe in God, right? We can look around ourselves. There's a minority that are religious, right? Those people that believe that there is God. God is in control and God is the creator. From that minority, majority of them, the majority of that minority are not real believers because they're idol worshippers. You know, and then again we see all those people that are religious, that are believer in God. Unfortunately, they set up idols beside God. Satan has claimed them, right? So the majority of that minority will go to hell. And then there's a minority of that minority that God, inshallah, would help, and they would believe in God alone and worship Him alone. Those are the ones that will go to heaven. The rest of them will not make it, unfortunately. So this is something that God has told us in the book. It's not something that we're making up. God is telling us the people that believe in God, well, the questions are asked. There are two other verses that in the Quran explain the same things. You know, who provides for you from the heavens and hell? Of course, God provides. Who controls the hearings and the eyesight? Of course, God does. Who produces the living from the dead and the other way around? God, of course. Who is in full control of everything? God. But it's just like very much lip service, unfortunately. So God says, why do you not then observe the commandments? Those who really believe and devote themselves to God alone are the ones that observe the commandments. And it's not easy. May God help us, inshallah. It's a reminder for everyone, and including myself, inshallah, to observe the commandments in full details, every single one of them. Inshallah, there are lots of commandments. When you invite to God, you have to be kind and I don't remember the exact wording, but you have to be kind, and you have to be kind and compassionate amongst yourselves. You know, all of these are commandments of God. We need to make sure that we uphold every single one of them, inshallah. Such as God, your rightful Lord. What is there after the truth except falsehood? How could you disregard all this? What God tells us is absolute truth. Anything else is falsehood, is conjecture. This is what your Lord's decision does to those who choose to be wicked. They cannot believe. So those who choose to be wicked, God does not guide them. And whoever God does not guide cannot believe. They cannot believe. They've got their hearing, their eyesight is blocked. They think they can see and they can hear, but they cannot. We see examples of this everywhere. You tell them about God, they read about the messenger, but what they read is really, but what they explain back to you is very wrong. It's completely opposite of what they've actually read or what they've actually heard. And that's because they can't understand, they cannot comprehend it. It doesn't matter. It's not it's not you who doesn't explain things to them properly. It's them who cannot understand it. God says there's a verse in the Quran when God says to the Prophet, do not beat yourself because of those who do not believe. If God wanted them to believe, they would have believed. So it's even the Prophet of God couldn't. It's not the exact verse. I'm just paraphrasing, please. Um, inshallah, we'll find the verse, but that's how the verse goes. So even the Prophet of God couldn't guide anyone. He's just relaying the message to the people. So God guides whomever wills to be guided. Did the 24? Yep. So 34. Reflect on your idols. Say, can any of your idols initiate creation, then repeat it? This is the question that God repeats throughout the Quran when he talks about the idols that people set up. Can they create? Can they initiate any creation, then repeat it the way that God does? Say God initiates the creation, then repeats it. Say, does any of your idols guide to the truth? Say, God guides to the truth. Is the one who guides to the truth more worthy of being followed, or the one who does not guide and needs guidance for himself? What is wrong with your judgment? The favorite example that we've got is about the fly, right? Can they create a fly? Of course not. These idols that they set up beside God, can they create a fly? No. Furthermore, if the fly takes something away from them, can they take it back? Of course not. And God says, weak is the pursuer and the pursued. So that's a very logical question. When you set up idols beside the Lord of the universe, the one that has created everyone and everything, including all the stars and the sun and the moon and your fingerprints and fingertips and everything, have any of those idols created anything? Of course not. Nobody has created anything apart from God, right? Even those people that are creators, they use God, they use all the materials that God has created, the elements and everything that God has created, to use those ones and make something with it by God's leave, right? So no one can create anything if it's not in accordance with God's will. God is the only creator, and He creates and repeats it. God initiates the creation, that repeats it. And of course, God is the one that guides us. Nobody can guide us. We just said, like, even the prophet couldn't guide people. God is the only one that guides in accordance with his will and in accordance with his knowledge. And he is the only one who's worthy of worshiping. He's the only one that we need to make sure that we get close to, inshallah. And on that note, I'm gonna finish the study here, inshallah. Thank you everyone for listening.
Bless you.
MashaAllah, sister.
Thank you, mashallah. Praise God.
I wasn't able to hear you, neither Brother Nizam or Mona. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I
Yes,
can hear
yes,
you
I
now.
can hear.
Oh, there's something wrong. I cannot hear you, so let me just log out. Log in.
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yeah.
Yes.
Obviously you
Can you
can,
hear
but
us?
you guys. It's not working. So, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Shivajan, we can
Okay.
hear you. Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank God. Now I can hear you guys. Okay. Mashallah. Okay. So I wanted to comment on your friend's comment that she's a submitter, mashallah, and she's having a hard time, letting go of family members who were idol worshippers. I had the same experience. It's not fun, it's not easy, but God helps us because we need to uphold the scripture, and we know that we should not pray for them or wish them anything, as far as I know, and that they were idol worshippers. And also, there's a verse in Surah 2 Al-Baqarah that says, there are three types of people, the righteous, the disbelievers, and the hypocrites. So there's no third category, the fourth category out of these. Like, it's not that the people who are, good, but they haven't received, or, or it's before receiving the messenger of the covenant, or after that, everybody received the Quran like almost more than 1400 years ago. That's my opinion. And then it's not difficult for God to send certain souls that He knows what they are stamped, whether they are stamped heaven or hell. So it's not a coincidence for God. It's not an accident that someone is good, but came here before the messenger of the covenant, and they failed to become righteous. And there is this idea of the instinct. So, and then they had the Quran in their home, but they chose not to read it. I'm talking about my own relative. They chose not to read it, and they, upheld the unjust laws of their idols, and they were idol worshippers their whole life. They had a miserable death. So everything, the evidence is showing is against what God promises for the righteous. So if we are to uphold the Quran, inshallah, we should avoid taking their side, inshallah.
Yes, mashallah, I have the same understanding. It's Iranians, when somebody's dead, they say Khuda rahmatish kone. Every time she talks about her deceased father, she says Khuda rahmatish kone. And I'm like, you cannot really say that. Of course, he might be a good soul, and God is aware of it. But from our point of view, things that they were doing were not in accordance with what God is telling us in His Quran. And obviously, they didn't receive the message. He passed away before the actual message was given to them. So didn't receive the message. But then God is fully aware of them. Then the argument was, isn't it God says you can say for your parents that Rabb irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. We've got it in verse 24 of the Bani Israel.
Have mercy on them. Yes, have
Yes,
mercy.
have mercy on them. So that's the argument, was that why can I not say Khuda rahmatishun kune, or it's
Mhm.
may God have mercy on their soul. Um,
Yeah, as far as they're
but
alive, I would say that's fine, because that means that you are praying for them to be guided. But if they were misguided and they lost their chance, us saying that is not righteous.
yes, exactly. I mean, it's just like really saying that. Yes, so the traditional Muslims do ask for mercy from God, for the souls of the deceased. Yes. Um, yes. So that's the argument. We shouldn't really do that for people that we know were not submitted and they passed away. And the argument was about the parents, that we've got a verse that you can ask for God's mercy upon them. But as Shima said, this is very much about the parents that are alive. Once they're passed, and you know that they passed away not believing in the way that God has asked us to believe, like devoting absolutely to God alone, then you cannot ask for their forgiveness. Well, when they say, may God bless their soul, it is literally asking God to forgive them, right? What else could it be? I mean, we're just playing with words here, but when you ask mercy for a deceased person, you don't ask them to go like a little bit further up in hell, right? You're asking them to be forgiven. So I just don't see why you would say that, knowing all these. I mean, it's better for your own soul. I mean, God is fully aware of everything, right? God tells Noah, do not ask me something that you do not know. And Noah repents and say, God, help me not to ask you something that I'm not aware of, I don't have any knowledge of. And that's Noah. And that's his son there, right in front of his eyes, going down. And God is merciful. God is the most merciful. He is kinder to us than anyone else. He's kinder to us than ourselves to ourselves. He is the kindest, so he knows. So we're not the one to ask God for things that we do not know, we're not aware of. God is fully aware of things. So these are not a kind of prayers that a submitter should do, knowing that the person that they're praying for had not followed all these commandments. We just read the verse when they believe in God. Of course, the argument is that, well, they believed in God in their own capacity. Of course, they believed in God in their own capacity. We've got verses that people actually acknowledge the fact that God is the creator. God is the one who controls everything. But then God says, where did you go wrong then? Why do you not follow the commandments? Anyways, so it's better for our own soul to, inshallah, be careful and know that God is omnipotent, is omniscient, and he's the most gracious, most merciful. And so inshallah, be a little bit more careful about things that we say and ask for, inshallah. May God guide us as well. I mean, inshallah, this is the right thing to do, but God is fully aware of his creatures.
Yes, mashallah. I specifically remember it was early in my submission that I came across one of the audios by the Messenger of the Covenant where he was talking to a woman and she was like she had a cold and she wasn't feeling well. And the messenger said that like there is a chance that since the discussion was on one of the deceased parents or someone in her relatives that she was like supporting as a believer. And the messenger said like there is a chance that you are sick because you are doing this. Okay, so stop taking the side of someone are were idol worshippers. But then the woman argued that that person was just saying God alone and things like that. So maybe she had another cause for the cold because the messenger also stopped the discussion. But my point being is, our happiness is at risk. We are promised happiness and we can feel that happiness as submitters. So, and we know that, in the high society, all our souls were equal, in the sense of, I mean, the same happening in the same event, that rebellious event, we were all together. So if someone is our parent or grandparent, they were with us even though their souls came earlier into this world. And then us, they were with us in that rebellious act. We were all criminals there. So if someone didn't believe and they ended up believe in the sense of the actual believing, not just saying that God exists, I mean the actual believing in the Quran that is fully described. If someone chose not to go in that direction and we're not guided and we're idolizing saints, especially in Shia in Iran, we know what people do, okay? Or they were idolizing themselves. They were just focused in this world and they were just heedless of the hereafter. They didn't show any act of righteousness and charity and the things that we are commanded to do. Then it's our happiness that's at risk and we should avoid that. Even though there is peer pressure, we know that there is peer pressure. So if someone dies, it's harder to stop ourselves from wishing them forgiveness than just staying quiet. Sorry, it's harder to stay quiet than just wish them, because it's the cultural practice, it's peer pressure. Everybody's looking at you and you think that they expect you to wish the deceased person heaven or wish them forgiveness. But it takes some practice to go against the stream, to go against what the culture is doing. And because we have commandments, we have really, we have the treasure and we should cherish that. you know. And after a while of practicing, we can just wish that the family member, the one who survived, is good, or change the focus on someone else, if we are given the news of someone's death, I mean. But even if our parents, it's not easy to think that your parent didn't make it, but we are all servants of God, and we know that God is the most just, He's the most fair, and if someone didn't make it, it's what was stamped and it was their choice. So, and based on the Quran, we have the criterion. We can judge and we can tell that if someone lived a whole life of idol worshiping and then died a miserable death and had like the last years were really miserable, or they had a joyful, beautiful life of worshiping God alone. We can literally tell by God's, grace. We don't need to go tell people in their face if the family member died like that, a disbeliever or an idol worshiper, but we can control ourselves, not wishing them, well, or forgiveness, inshallah.
Yeah, mashallah. And also from my experience, if when you're living with a disbeliever, sometimes, even though it's not easy, but sometimes it will help you. Yeah, it's helped me a lot, some like that, to understand the religion, and when you give them like you live with them and you give them the message, again and again, gently, nicely, so you can see how they are blocked, for small, very logical thing, and you try to explain them, but they cannot get the point. So and you can see, if from your relative or from other people, you can see, God said, they are blocked, you can see there. So sometimes it's helped me, it's helped me actually, when I was, spoke with them, and I see the miracle of the Quran. Oh yes, see how they block. Very small thing. It's very easy to understand. It's very logical. But for them, it does not make any sense. I don't know. So sometimes it will help you, I think, yeah. So, and sometimes you have to disregard them if they are not listening. So we don't have to force them, so we have to talk to them as best possible manner. Give them, our job is give them the message, either with our parents or brothers, sisters, relatives. Our job is, give them the message with best possible manner. If they don't listen, and we don't have to do, we cannot do nothing. So that's my, uh, understanding. And I want to also comment about the verses, surah, the sister read, surah 10:20, so so that verse has said, the people are saying that time, the waiting, why they didn't see any miracle from the prophet Muhammad. you know they say, how come no miracle came? They say, how come no miracle came down to him from this Lord? Say, the future belongs to God, so wait, and so I am waiting along with you. So the prophet also waiting with them. He cannot show for some reason, he understood that this is actually the miracle will reveal after him. So, and the traditional Muslim, they claim, like for example, Surah 54, the moon. So they understood and they made some story about the miracle that the Prophet Muhammad splitted the moon, and something like that. But when you see the chronological order of the Quran, so the 54 surah revealed before Surah 10. So see, so if had seen already the miracle, so they would not ask Prophet Muhammad again why they didn't see any miracle. So from the surah, if we analyze the surah, so until even surah 10, so they didn't see any miracle from Prophet Muhammad. So their claim in surah 54, like the moon, is actually automatically invalid, because after that surah, God revealed these verses. So, yeah, so that's so this what when we read the Quran, in everywhere is miracle, and it's so many wonderful messages for us, mashallah. And so let me comment also again the another verses, the surah 10 27. So sister read, their faces will seem overwhelmed by masses of dark night. So what I understood from this sentence, so they'll be the people, the disbeliever hypocrites. So when they see the reality that day, so they'll be disappointed, upset, worried, you know, and God is, just giving some example. Their face will be like as a dark night. So because they'll be disappointed so hardly. So yeah, so it's not. So we have to think. Mashallah, God give us guidance. Bring her to the Quran alone. So, and we have to praise God day and night. This is a great blessing that we are able to read the actual Quran. You know. Thanks.
Yeah, mashallah. Good points. So moon, which chapter is the moon? That's a
Yeah,
good point, actually.
54, 54.
54 is the moon, and what was the? Let me just see. The moon was the 37th. Oh gosh, okay. So the 37th revelation was the moon. This
Mm-hmm,
chapter 54, and
mm-hmm.
this is the chapter that people say that Prophet Muhammad just literally
Split at the moon.
split the moon into half.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're reading in chapter 10, which
20.
is Revelation 51, is it?
Yeah.
Revelation 51,
Mm-hmm.
that people say why no miracle comes down to him from his Lord. Oh, this is awesome. That's a very good observation. MashaAllah.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Mashallah.
And yeah, but why? But by the way, we read in the Quran that God manifests miracles to those who've attained certainty, right? So those people that were fighting, for example, with Prophet in those wars that were imposed on them, God says, "I send my angels to fight with you." So they feel that they see that they winning like people that are twice or three times the number of them, and probably they're more they've got more equipment and more horses and swords and things like that, whatever they were using on those days to fight with. So these
Mm-hmm.
people could win over them, could triumph in those wars. And God explains to them that yes, my angels were fighting with you, my thousands, and we read all those verses. So these miracles were manifested to the believers that had attained certainty at the time. It's the disbelievers that they cannot see them. And God says even if you climb up the sky, they cannot believe. They say it's magic. You're a magician, right? So Moses came down with a serpent that staff actually became serpent. They didn't believe in him. He halved. He opened the sea. They didn't believe in him. They ended up worshiping a calf. So it's the disbelievers that they don't even see the miracles. They cannot believe in the miracles. The camel of Thamud, they killed the camel. They decided that they want to kill it. Although they believed in God, the Samud people, they killed it because they couldn't believe that. And the people of Samud that had believed, they say, we believed in the message that was brought down with him, right? So the people that actually attain certainty and they believe in God, they see the miracle, even the smallest, or even the miracles that others cannot see. They see it. The people that disbelieve, they cannot see the biggest miracle in front of them. They say it's magic. SubhanAllah. That's how God controls things. That's how God does the work. If He doesn't want someone to believe, no one can make them believe. SubhanAllah.
Well, the triumph at war and things like that were not good enough for them. They wanted something like what Moses did and what Jesus did. They were not satisfied with the Quran. The Quran itself was like God says, "Is it not enough of a miracle that we revealed this book to you?" All that information that the blessing, and there's no contradiction at that time and everything, that the whole message. When I read the Quran these days, it's changing my life. My life is so different, even though it's like we claim that it's the modern era and we have like full information how to manage our lives and things like that. It was impossible before reading the Quran. So imagine at that time that like it was like the old ages, and they had all this blessing in their native language, and they could greatly benefit from that. But the one who benefits is the one that actually God decides and God wills them for them to benefit. Otherwise, it's just for them it was like poets, poems, and they didn't take it seriously, and they were just asking for something cool, something that they could, with their small brains and their wicked hearts, could understand and enjoy, like reviving the dead and opening the sea and things like that.
Exactly. And God says they even asked Moses to see God.
Yeah.
Mm.
Actually, my understanding, the sincere people could realize, understand the miracle. In those days, the literature was the main, issue in those generation, in the society. So the way the God written the Quran is so wonderful. The Arabic people, they noticed it was a wonderful literature in those days. It's not easy to write this kind of thing. It's very nicely well organized. So, and also the story, there is so many story. So the Prophet Muhammad lived with them all the time. So how could he know all the stories previous generation? So from so many perspective, they could understand. The believer could understand, oh, this is a miracle. There are so many miracles. you know they could, in those times, they didn't understand the science, the mathematics. So there is enough sufficient in the Quran, but the believer understood, those miracles. Quran is said. Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yes, exactly. Now it's the age of computation and computer science and things like that. Still people don't get, those who are wicked don't get the mathematical miracle of the Quran. It's divinely decided who is going to benefit, who is going to understand, reform, repent, and even, yeah, at that time, literature didn't work on them, even though it was the heated topic of that time.
Yeah, yeah. So it doesn't matter actually the miracle only. God will show the miracle, for the believer or who is sincere. Then they can recognize the miracle. Otherwise, they will not recognize the miracle. Say like the splitting of the moon. So now, how accurate this miracle for us now, like 54. and 1. The Surah 54, like 54 minutes and 1 second. And the Neil Armstrong, I think, they lifted off those rock from the moon exactly 54 1 second. And the verse mentioned that the moon has split it, this, I think the verse is something like that. So how, it's very logical and understanding for us. But some people, they say, no, 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 this is something else. The Prophet Muhammad split the moon. They don't want to believe this one. Even we have the physical and mathematical, evidence. So they don't understand the miracle.
Exactly, and they make the religion a joke. These people that they come up with such explanations. Really, I mean, the disbelievers use these to joke about a religion, to mock God and His messenger and a religion. It's bad. These are the people that actually, these are the ones that create lies and attribute them to God and make people, resent the religion or just walk away from the religion because of all this nonsense. I saw a program. It was saying like, yeah, there's a claim that prophet did this, but there's no there's no historical proof. So when the moon is split into two, it wouldn't only be the people that are standing in that spot that would be able to see it. So people from across the area that is night at the time would be able to see that, right? So, so there's no claim whatsoever from anywhere in the world that such a phenomenon has happened. So they've
Yeah,
actually
no,
gone to look for
no.
an evidence.
But sister, they made up so much story. They made, they said from the India, some people, saw the, the moon, it's clear. And they made so much story in the name of hadith. So they already did some story. People already saw from the different side. Uh, but it doesn't make sense. Yeah, yeah. So those days they thought that the moon was like as a small thing. They didn't understand the size of the moon. So that's why they made a story. They split one half of there and one half the other side. So now from we know that, and the way they thought, it doesn't any make any sense. uh,
Oh, Capcom arm. Okay, we're going. Real good here.
Yeah, mashallah, God is above what they say, far above what they explain and say. But I can't comprehend it. They think, I mean, astaghfirullah, God and His Messenger are at their own level. They don't comprehend that God is the Lord of the universe. SubhanAllah.
Well, actually, the messenger is at people's level is just a human being, but they made a deity out of them, by attributing all these lies to them. So you see the contradiction, They honor them so much because they want people to follow them as a divine, and like as a deity or as a divine person. And then because they want to attach all these lies to them. So first they make an idol, and then they make people to follow the hadith that they fabricated in the name of that idol. It's, yeah, so unfortunate what people are following. So something, Monajan, you mentioned about a verse that we sometimes don't remember the exact verse. So it was about, you said, don't beat yourself up to the prophet, but we don't have that in the Quran, but it actually we have, do not blame, you may blame
Blame
yourself.
yourself, yeah.
that you are not,
Yes.
that they are not believers. One is that you may blame yourself, and the other one is that do not be saddened by those who hasten to disbelieve. So, you know that. Yeah, I know what you meant, but just for the audience.
Yeah, mashallah. Thank you for reminding. Thank you. So I don't know, Brother Salami, if you're back from your prayer or not. If there is no more comments or any questions, yes, we may inshallah conclude the session.
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
conclude.
Yes, inshallah.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Inshallah, have a great rest of the day and night, wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay.
Sister Mona, and praise be
Okay.
to God. Assalamu
Okay.
alaikum.
Assalamu
Praise
alaikum.
God. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Salami.